Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Huckabee, and welcome to Conversations with Nicole. My guest today is Jody Powell, the host of the Quotivation Podcast, and you are going to love him. He's inspiring and wants to help you win your week. Jody is just a wealth of knowledge. His background is in marketing, and he's hailed as America's leading emerging speaker, receiving recognition from the Toastmasters International World Championship of Public Speaking. You can find a treasure trove of information about Jody's speaking engagements, his podcast, and tools for personal growth and inspiration at jodypowellspeaks.com. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I'm delighted to have as my guest today, Jody Powell, the dynamic host of the Quotivation Podcast. Good to see you, my friend.
Hi, Nikki. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so glad to have you on the show. You are hailed as America's leading emerging speaker. You've got lots of accolades when it comes to public speaking. You host events, plan events. You're just a treasure trove of things that you can do to make our lives better. It's beautiful to have you on the show today.
Well, I am super excited to be on the show. You are too kind with your introduction, and it's just so much fun to be able to share uplifting and meaningful events with people to talk about things that just build people up. I just derive so much fulfillment from that, and it's exciting.
I agree 100%. That's one thing I love about doing my show is that I like putting good positive content into the world and making our world a better place. And that sounds exactly what you were talking about on your show and what you like to do as well in your events that you plan and that you are a part of. So first of all, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
What's your favorite quote?
Ooh.
Oh,
Do I have to pick one?
no, you don't have to pick one. A favorite quote.
A favorite quote. One of the things, it's really an obscure quote, actually. I don't think a lot of people would think about this when you talk about popular motivational quotes. It comes from a movie, and I'm actually afraid that I'm going to have a man card taken away because it's a Matthew McConaughey movie. Sorry, guys.
I love him.
I know you do, but
I love him.
The guys are like, oh, Matthew McConaughey, yeah. But it is.
I think that's flattering that you love him. Yes.
Well, I didn't say I loved him. I said the quote came from his movie.
Yeah.
But it was the movie that starred Samuel L. Jackson and Donald Sutherland called A Time to Kill. And if you're familiar with the story, you've read the book, it's a fantastic book, a great movie. McConaughey's a lawyer who's defending an African-American man in the Deep South for murder. And McConaughey has this mentor who's this disgraced lawyer, is played by Donald Sutherland, just a fantastic actor. And they're talking about the closing statement. And Donald Sutherland, his character had not been back in the courtroom since he had been disbarred, and he just swore it off, and he's lived the life of just this drunk, miserable old man. But McConaughey goes to him and he says, they're talking through the closing summation, and Donald Sutherland is like, this doesn't even sound like, what are you doing? This doesn't sound like you. And McConaughey says, well, I'm just trying to be you. I'm trying to do what you would say. And Donald Sutherland looked at him and he said what I think is an incredible quote. He said, me? Don't be me, be better than me. And I think if so many leaders and managers and mentors, if they thought this way, if they really wanted to build someone up that they're leading or that they're mentoring, that's how you do it. You encourage someone to outshine you. And I think that's just one of the most powerful quotes I've ever heard. And it reminds me so much that when we're in leadership positions to really look at the talent that we have or the talent that we're hiring and take the chance and make that scary hire, that hire that, deep down, that person's better than you because they're going to make you better and you're going to in turn make them better.
I love that. That's almost the same concept you could use in a relationship. You want to be with someone who makes you better because
Absolutely.
Then you're better together. It's a win-win. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for the question. That's just one of 1,000. I love quotes, obviously.
Really?
I better if I'm going to be doing this Quotivation podcast, but I do love quotes. That's one that came to mind today.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing that. So a perfect lead in to tell folks about the Quotivation Podcast?
Yeah, this is something I've been thinking about, Nikki, for years, and it actually ties really in line with one of my new keynotes that I'm doing, because I have always just held myself back from doing this. I've said, well, no one's going to listen. It's not going to be good. No one's going to want to be on it. And so I've just kind of really put the self-doubt and self-sabotage in place for me to not do it. And then a friend of mine came to me and said, listen, you just need to do it. Just stop with the excuses and just do it. You want to do it. It's going to be terrible when you start, and it's going to get better and better and better and better. And she was absolutely right. And so I just did it. I started this year, the very first week of January, and I'm trying to do weekly episodes where I invite people like yourself to come on my podcast. You were on this week, which
Thank
you
you.
did a fantastic job. Love that. Just to bring their favorite quote and what it means to them. And ultimately what I want for my audience is to be able for them to win their week. And I think that's so important. If you can win your week. And what I mean by that, winning your week means that you are moving one step closer to your goals. How do you go just a little bit more, give a little bit more, do a little bit more, find that inspiration to just take that next step, that one more step towards your goals, because that'll get you there so much quicker. And I hope people find from my episodes the inspiration to find that motivation within them to do that.
I love that. And I was thinking too, 1 week at a time is really a good way to think about your life. We can get so overwhelmed sometimes thinking about this huge big picture of what we need to do by, the end of the year, or,
Right.
kind of when I grow up sort of thing. If, if we can just say, this week, how do I win it? Then I take the next step. It's kind of like one day at a time, but I do like 1 week at a time. That's really something you can wrap your head around. You can look at your calendar or look at your goals, look at the things you want to accomplish. So I love that. I love that.
And it's not saying that you shouldn't set those goals for the
Sure.
year, but it's about how you tackle them, right? And winning the week, it can even seem daunting for some weeks, right? I mean, there are some weeks where it's like, I've got so much to do. How am I going to win my week when I've got all of this stuff going on?
Right.
But you do that by taking it one moment at a time. Just like you said, you win a couple of moments, you string those together, and you've won your day.
Yeah.
You win a couple of days and you've won your week. And so it just continues to build. You put together a couple of weeks that you win, and suddenly you're at your goal. You've reached your goal, hopefully ahead of schedule, so that you can start setting new goals.
Well, and that builds self-confidence too.
Absolutely.
It's always when I make the list and I check them off, I feel so accomplished. It's the same concept, but putting it together with your life, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations. So that totally makes sense. So have you always been someone who loved quotes?
I really have. It's where
Okay.
I've always kind of pulled motivation from, the inspiration to find motivation. A lot of people will say you can't motivate someone. Motivation's within, inspirations is what you, whatever it is. I mean, I personally think you can motivate people. You can inspire them to do things that they wouldn't normally think of doing. And so I think it's a little bit of semantics, but I've always kind of pulled that inspiration or that motivation from just really powerful quotes, and they all seem to come at just the right time, and they come out of nowhere.
That's so true. That's so true. You'll be in a state of mind, whether it's up or down, whatever's going on in your life. And it does seem in my instances too, the right quote will come to me at just the right time, whether it's someone says it on television or listening to a podcast or scrolling through that Instagram feed. One of those, you're like, oh, I so needed that today. So you're giving
Absolutely.
that to us every week. And I love that. So tell me a little bit more about yourself. You're a phenomenal speaker. You're a Toastmasters International World Championship winner, right?
Semifinalist, close to winning.
Semifinalist. And so you have this love for public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
which is another way you communicate, motivating people, inspiring them, whether it's for businesses, individuals. Talk a little bit about that.
I've really always had a passion for motivating people, but I've had a fear of public speaking. A lot of people ask me now, like, how can I be a really great, how do I get over this nervousness? How do I get over the fear? How do I become a great motivational speaker? Well, there's no magic pill to it. You have to speak.
Yes.
That's the answer. You just have to do it. And, you can go back and my wife will tell you, I mean, you could go back and look at our wedding video, and I had people coming up to me after the wedding saying, "Oh, that was so sweet. You were so emotional. Your voice was cracking." No, I wasn't emotional. I was nervous. I was speaking in front of, I was not crying. I was petrified. You know, so I haven't always had this passion of speaking in front of people. It kind of came over time when I've been forced into that. Right. And I've worked on the skills. Toastmasters is a fantastic organization to really practice that, to have the opportunity to rehearse and to speak and to be in front of people that you normally wouldn't speak in front of. And so that just gives you the confidence and the repetitions to be able to do that. I think from combining that skill with just a desire to uplift, a desire to motivate, and a desire to really instill confidence into people that I'm talking to, those two have combined to really set me on this journey. And it's fun, it's exciting, and it's scary all at the same time.
Yes. I was thinking, if people ask me, will you come and speak? I get so nervous. I don't really like speaking in public either, but I know that I need to do it because I do feel that if people are asking me to speak, I have a story to share and I want to do my part to, you know, influence people in a positive way, share something that would make a difference in their lives. But it is a scary thing to be in front of an audience, to be in front of a crowd. And I hear that Toastmasters is a great way to help people overcome that. Even if you don't plan to speak in public on a regular basis, it's something that instills confidence within you.
That's exactly right. And Toastmasters really, it's more about speaking. Certainly you learn how to overcome that fear. You learn great ways to communicate and really techniques on how to communicate. And so it's really something that can be applied in relationships, in your daily work life. More than just speaking in front of people. You learn leadership skills, you learn how to run meetings. It's a very strict agenda that you have Toastmasters who manage the meeting each time, and it's a different Toastmaster. So you get these repetitions and this practice to do things beyond just speaking. So it's a fantastic development tool. And I would encourage anyone that's looking to grow just as a leader to consider Toastmasters. It's more than just speaking, but definitely on the speaking side, it is something that's a fear that needs to be that needs to be tackled. And the funny thing about it, and I talk about this in my keynote, one of the things that we do is we put shackles on ourselves. We self shackle. We put these barriers in front of us, and they're things that we do to ourselves. Fear is one of those.
Yeah.
Fear of speaking is one of those. We're afraid of what people are going to think. We're afraid of what they're going to say. We're afraid of being judged. All of that's happening up here in our minds. And it hasn't happened actually. And so the truth is, when you go to hear someone speak, do you go to hear them fail? No. You go to learn. You go to be inspired. Your audience is your biggest cheerleader. And when you start to see it that way, when you start to find those smiles and the nods and the eye contact, that you can tell that you're reaching people, that's when the confidence builds and the nervousness kind of goes away.
Okay, I'm going to write that down. Your audience, because I love that. I may be quoting you. Your audience is your cheerleader. That is really a new way for me to even be thinking about when I speak, because all of those things that you described, even though I had decades of time on television, it's very different when you get away from a screen and you're actually looking at the people.
Sure.
And I used to have a couple of things that when I would be asked to speak in public, I just got to look over the tops of their heads sometimes because I would get so nervous, or, I would think just, they're just like me, or they actually showed up because they wanted to hear what I had to say. So you're going to be all right. Like, you do have to do a lot of self-talk sometimes if it's not something that comes to you naturally or that you do have some reservations about. But I'm going to remember that next time. Your audience is your biggest cheerleader, quote by Jody Powell.
Well, you are more than welcome to use that quote as much as you want. I don't know if it'll add any value to anyone, but it's certainly something too that I think not only helps in speaking. You talk about kind of looking over the top of people. That helps with that initial nervousness, but there's nothing better than looking someone in the eye and they smile at you or they nod their head and you see that light bulb come on and they come up to you afterwards and they say, wow, I really needed to hear that. If nothing else, if one person needed to hear what I had to say, then it's been a success.
Right. Yes, you're correct. I'm kind of was thinking, when you first start out though, you kind of
Oh,
like,
it helps. Yes.
but you're right. It is the connection with your audience that really where the rubber meets the road, and you make the connection, and you hopefully say something that was impactful. So all of this leads me to, you actually host events, you plan speaking engagements, you work with businesses, companies. Talk about how people can tap into you, Jody. You're like this great resource that people need to be like latching on to so that they can um, be living more fulfilled lives and have better leadership skills among their companies and that sort of thing.
Well, thank you for that. That's very sweet of you to say. I do have a website, jodypowellspeaks.com.
Yes.
I speak at conferences, I speak at companies, corporate events, I conduct training sessions. I can do all day trainings, or I can do 30-minute workshops, and everything in between. And on a variety of topics. I do have keynotes that I have. I have a really powerful keynote about your personal brand and how to build and grow your brand, and how to kind of write your own story. We can't tell people how to feel about us, but we can influence it. And so how do you do that? And so I walk through that. I also have mentioned my Unshackled, my new keynote speak, Unshackled, where we talk about the freedom to thrive. And it's really releasing yourself from your own prison. We are our own worst enemy at times.
Gosh, that is so true.
Oh, it
I fall
is.
into that all the time. I don't have enough self-confidence. I say, oh, I can't do that. And I could use coming to your classes and your workshops, because that's so important what you just said.
It really is. And the funny thing about being our own worst enemy, or really the difficult thing about it, is that our enemy knows us very well. We know ourselves, and we know the buttons to push to maybe prevent us from moving forward, or to keep us from taking that leap or taking that chance. And so we have to turn these captors that we have in our minds, this fear, this self-sabotage, this self-doubt, this complacency, we turn those captors into catapults. We use the fear as energy.
Yeah.
We overcome, because really when you think about being unshackled and unshackling from your own shackles that we place on ourselves, it's not about escape. We're not escaping ourselves. We're overcoming.
Right.
And so we have to overcome. And once we shed those shackles, and we are catapulted into just an abundant, thriving life that is full of all kind of opportunities. And once we remove the fear and the self-doubt, and we are on our way, is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. There's going to be setbacks and failures. There's going to be things that work, things that don't work, but that's how we grow. That's how we learn. And we have to go through those things.
Absolutely. And what a few other keynotes speeches that you have?
From a business perspective, I talk about culture. I'm a passionate culture geek. I love corporate culture. And a lot of people hear that and they say, well, culture, this guy wants to come in and put in beanbags and video games. And that's not culture at all.
That's a bad idea, but that's not what you're saying.
It's not about, like, I would love it. I would go work for a company like that. But
Yeah,
it's not culture at all. Culture, it's really about how do we do things? What are the things that as a group collectively we agree that we're going to allow? What are the things that we don't want in terms of behaviors? And as soon as we are establishing this culture, and as soon as everyone's buying into this culture, then you start to hire for your culture, and you hire people that have the same values. And that's where culture comes from. It comes from your values.
Yeah.
So if you really value integrity, you're going to want to hire really honest people. If you value things like collaboration, you're going to want to hire people that are willing to work together and not, hold on to their work and hide in their cubicle or hide in their office. And so culture is a really powerful one that I love to talk about. Authenticity, big on authenticity. I have a keynote about being authentic. AWE is an awesomely authentic. And I love just being able to allow people to realize that it's okay to be you. It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to bring everything that you have, the good, the bad, the ugly, to the table and say, here I am. And not fear rejection, not fear judgment, because what you bring to the table is valuable. Even the flaws, they're valuable.
Yes.
Because we have to know, like as a leader, I want to know flaws. I want to know the things that are your weaknesses so that I can hire to support those weaknesses. Maybe someone else has a strength that you have a weakness. There's collaboration opportunity. It's not to judge. It's not to say that, oh, no, you can't work on this project. Yeah. No, let's bring together so that we can learn and we can all grow together.
Love that, using everyone's strengths, because we all have a strength. So
Absolutely.
when we are being very authentic and true to ourselves, bring our best to the table and use it from every individual in your workplace. I failed to mention that your background is marketing. So it's perfect that you help companies be true to their brand and how to influence. Talk a little bit more about your background there.
Sure. Yeah. Marketing was my first love.
Yeah.
I majored in marketing. I came out of school and went right into the marketing world. I just love the concept of really looking at how people make decisions. What is the psychology behind a decision that people make to buy something or to subscribe to a product or to become a tribal member of a brand? My wife, I tell the story all the time of my wife right after we got married. We're in that honeymoon phase and she calls me up at work. She's like, oh, will you run to the store for me? And I'm like, oh yeah, baby, I'll go to the store. What do you need? Anything for you. But after 27 years, it's like, okay, what do you want? So she calls us. She says, oh, we need bread, milk, Kleenex. And she lists a few things. I go to the store and I look down, there's Kleenex. But oh, wait, Puffs is on sale. Oh, she's going to love this. I'm saving us money. Buy a box of Puffs. I get home, I'm unpacking the groceries. She looks down. She says, what is that? It's the Kleenex. It's not Kleenex. And it's like this other side of her comes out. It's like, it's Puffs. I don't use Puffs. What are you, crazy? And I get this 10-minute sermon on how Puffs are just so inferior to Kleenex. And for her, there was no substitute for Kleenex. Like she wouldn't use anything else. And that's brand. That's the power of brand. Those things just really fascinate me, how people come to those decisions.
How do we come to those decisions? I mean, obviously one product can just really be better than another, but what is the psychology behind that? I'm actually curious. I mean, I have things that I like and don't like. I mean, but I'm thinking, oh, well, it tastes better or it wears better or it feels better. Or, well, grandma did it and great grandma did it. And so we should do it too,
Yeah. It really comes down to an emotional decision.
Emotional decision.
It's an emotional decision. It's something that we identify with. And so I'll give you an example. My oldest son, Jake, this kid, I mean, he was like, he would go to school, he would come home and he would tell us what he did in class. He would tell us what he had for homework to do. He'd go upstairs and do it. He'd come downstairs, he would hand us the homework log and we would sign it. And my wife and I would high five each other like we're the best parents in the world. I mean, this kid's like, just rock star. And he's the one that's doing it all, right? So he's this great student. He's very organized. He's got all these things. So when it came time for him to go to school, to pick a school, to go to college, I said, okay, Jay, we need to figure this out because number one, you're going to go in state because I'm not paying out of state tuition. That's just not happening.
Yeah.
So
I get that.
Yeah. Wow. But we tell him, let's start talking about where you want to look at schools. And he says, well, I have 3 criteria that I'm going to look at per school. And I'm like, of course you do. And number one, he wanted to go to a smaller school. He wanted to know his professors. The second one was that he wanted a really good political science department because what he wanted to do, he wanted to major. In fact, he said, if I'm going to be president, I need to know what I'm doing. And I'm like, do you really? Because
I think he went beyond that 1 week at a time concept there for you.
Yeah, a little bit. He had some goals. He has. That's right.
Treat me right.
Exactly. And then the third thing he said was, well, the dorms can't be sketch. And I'm like, well, 2 out of 3 is not going to be bad, son, because you're not going to find that. We toured the state. We went to so he finally decided on Lander University in Greenwood.
It's great school.
South Carolina. Great school. And of course I knew why, he checked off his boxes, but I had to ask, okay, Jake, why Lander? Why did you choose that? And I expected him to go through his list. But he said, Dad, it just feels like home. Mm-hmm. And so his decision was based on his emotional response to it. It checked the boxes, sure, but he felt like it was home. And then he went to the bookstore and he bought like 4 sweatshirts, 3 t-shirts, and a big sign that says a bear cat lives here to put in our yard, right? And that was part of it, because once you make a decision that's tied to your emotions, you are emotionally invested. If someone came to him and said, well, that's terrible, that's a terrible school, he would get angry. He would, you
Right.
would have that response because
Well,
you're emotionally invested in it.
yeah. And basically, someone's attacking him by saying they don't like the school because
It's
you're owning it now.
Exactly. And that's the psychology around the brand of loving brands is we become part of that company. We become part of that product. We become an advocate for that product or that service or that company or whatever. And people as well. People can have brands. And there are people that you will absolutely advocate for because you think the world of them.
Yeah.
And it's all based on those emotional experiences that you've had with them.
That's really interesting. I sort of figured that, but to hear you explain it was excellent, outstanding. And I was thinking as you were explaining it, I got to the point in my life where I told, I decided I wanted a sporty car. I had the mommy car because I was emotionally with my children.
Yep.
And now that they were older and I didn't have to take them around, I said, I'm going with a sporty spice car. And that was, so I got my first little BMW. And I am emotionally attached to BMWs now. And my
Absolutely.
husband will say, well, what about this SUV? I said, no, nothing that hauls around anything more than just me and one other person. I said, that because that emotionally takes me back to the mommy car, even though I'm
Sure.
always mommy. Now I'm the sporty spice girl. I want to drive the sporty spice car. So it is an emotional decision and an attachment I've made with my little sporty BMWs now. So you just
Absolutely.
found me.
Well, that's so true. And my wife and I own Jeep Wranglers. And so,
Yeah.
if you know anything about Jeeps, there's the Jeep wave. You pass a Jeep Wrangler and they're going to wave at you. You're going to wave at them. It's
Yeah.
just kind of this community. Some people call it a cult. Okay, it may be a little bit,
Maybe a little.
but we are just invested in that brand. We are emotionally attached to it.
That's very interesting. We could talk all day long
Oh,
about that
love
sort of
that.
thing. But that's beautiful though, that in marketing you learn that and you can actually help companies, help individuals achieve their goals with their products and services through your experiences and your background. I love that. Hey, listen, we're coming to the end. Tell me, what is the most important thing that you want my audience to know about Jody Powell?
Oh, wow. I just love to be able to communicate and connect. And so if you want to connect with me, Nikki's mentioned my podcast, the Quotivation Podcast. You can find that on my website. You can find it on podcast services. You definitely want to check out episode 13 with Nicole Huckabee. She was fantastic. She
Well,
was great.
you're too
And
kind. It was a blast. So much
it,
fun.
it's been so much fun to do, and I would love for people to be able to just listen, give me feedback, reach out to me through my website, jodypowellspeaks.com. If people are interested in having me come speak, I would love to have the opportunity to discuss that with you at corporate events, at community events, just gathering a group of friends together. Hey, I will speak. I will absolutely be glad to do that. I have a passion for it. Love to do that. And it's just a time where we're able to come together and share some really positive, uplifting, emotionally charged stories together.
I love all of that. I look forward to hearing you speak in person one day, because just having this time with you now and before when I was on your podcast, but really now learning more about you is phenomenal. I've learned so much already. So thank you for taking the time to be with me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Nikki, thank you so much for having me on. This has been a blast.
It is. Go follow him and wherever you listen to your podcast, the Quotivation Podcast with Jody Powell. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, and that will do it for this edition of Conversations with Nicole. Until I see you again, I hope you have a great day.